Yeah, I guess that's just like for the sake of the video, like let me know what your thoughts are on like what it is you're trying to do with the game and what you're hoping to get out of today.
Yeah, so as I said before, like this person that I was looking at who was teaching Valorant, it's like the way they explained how to get to like the top level
Mhm.
was like it made it seem so clear. And like now that I'm going to Melee, I feel like I should have the same mindset, but I got no clue where I should even like start.
Yeah, so I mean, Melee. I mean, I'm sure you already know, but like Melee is like a super super old game, right? So here, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna share my screen. Um, Melee has been around like way longer than Valorant, way longer than actually I don't want to say for sure because I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's older than Counter Strike. um, and people have been playing this game for like way too long, right? So, um, I think what's a cool thing about Melee is there is a ton of history and ways people have like gone past um like certain things within it, right? So like for example, like before it used to be that before it used to be that you would go on this old website called Smashboards, right? And you would learn Melee through reading like guides or just like people like
Do the posts.
yeah, like before Twitter was a thing, like people would just be on like message boards, right? Um,
Mhm.
and then like 2013 came around and like the documentary was a thing and people started making a lot more YouTube content and like Melee became more of like an online thing a little bit, but it's still mostly in person. But then I think you saw like a lot of like development in terms of like there's less like knowledge checks in the game and just more like fundamental stuff. And then Slippy kind of happened. That was like a really big part of the game because now anybody can play it online really easily. We have like new training modes. Like we have like Uncle Punch, which is like a really great training mod pack that you can have. I'll link that to you as well. I think that would be really helpful for
Yeah,
you.
I have it.
Okay, great. Do you have the community edition? Just curious.
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so I'll link you that one. That one I think it's the most recent update people are calling it. Um, but really all it means it's just like it's a mod of the new Uncle Punch. Basically, it just has a couple more features. Not anything I think is like super super important for you, but either way, I think it's really good. So I'll link you that. But yeah, so I don't know if you've heard of this YouTube channel. It started I think around like 2014, 2015. Um, maybe a little bit older. Honestly, I have no idea. But this is a channel I used to watch a lot when I was coming up. It's called SSBM Tutorials.
Yeah, I've seen this.
There's a lot of really good videos. Like I quite literally have seen like every single video on this channel, right? And the reason why I think SSBM Tutorials is really great nowadays over like some other Melee tutorial channels, or like I'm sure if I Google like how to play Melee 2025, right? Like a bunch of new videos are gonna pop up, like how to set up, how to start. There'd be guides on like whatever, right? Um, but I think what's beneficial about the SSBM tutorials channel is just the fact that for the most part, like right, like here or here or here, like it's under 10 minutes. Usually it's only like a short video like this, like 4 minutes, especially a lot of their older videos, right? Like if I look at like their popular videos here, like some of them are just a couple minutes long, right? But I think what's beneficial of them is it teaches you the mechanics pretty quickly in a way that's like pretty understandable. Obviously, like this channel is a little old. Like obviously now it's like some of these videos are like 10 years old, which is crazy because I remember seeing these when I first started Smash 4. But um, my greater point is like uh, this channel isn't going to tell you how to be good right away, but it's going to explain a lot of the mechanics that people talk about pretty easily, right? Um, the other thing I would recommend for you, just as like a resource, I'm gonna give you three resources here. Then we can jump in actually like asking questions and trying to get some solid info for you. But
Okay.
uh, the last thing I would recommend is MeleeLibrary.com. I'm not sure if you've heard of this one. This one's like pretty commonly linked in a lot of spots. I'm actually gonna link you one more thing, but Melee Library, again, similar to SSBM tutorials, like it just has a lot of guides, a lot of explanations of mechanics and how things work. So for the most part, like before back in the day, like people would literally like sit in training mode, they would just like mess around with different mechanics. Like a lot of people talk about like Mewtwo King. He's an old top player back in the day. Like he used to just like hit pause and read the frames, right? Nowadays you don't have to do that kind of stuff. Like that info is kind of all out there. So these channels and this website is like a really great way of just kind of having that information like readily available, right? And the last one I'm going to link you just in terms of like getting set up really easily, excuse me, is this website called Melee TV. Melee TV I think is really good. It basically just shows you like how to access like community discords, how to optimize your Netplay setup so it feels more like a CRT, how to practice, how to like get coaching, how to like so many things, right? So anyway, the reason why I'm giving you all this stuff, right? And I'm getting it all like the really good stuff from the get-go, right? Like all the interesting stuff that like makes it fun, teaches you how to do the cool stuff, whatever, right? Is because in my opinion, a big problem a lot of people have with getting good at Melee and improving at it is they have an idea of what they know is like really good and what they think the meta and what top players are doing all the time, right? But from my experience from talking to top players, they've just figured out what works really well for themselves, and then they try and learn off their matches on their own, right? And improve off of it. So while it's good to have a ton of these things and you can go down the rabbit hole and practice like your multi-shines or being like a god of like hitting certain tech or knowing like how production is done on certain things or whatever, like I find that people go too down the rabbit hole on it. So why I'm giving you this stuff is you have a question for yourself that you get from playing. These 3 resources and Uncle Punch are going to be the easiest ways that you can just get a quick answer out of it, right? So anything we talk about today, like if you ever come back to me for coaching, like I don't want to be professional Google searcher for you, you know? That's not worth your money. It's not worth like both of our time. So these 4 things alone, for the most part, like you can find almost anything you're looking for, right? Because they just have everything like readily organized and it's really good resources, right? So with that in mind, I think, in my opinion, because I've been playing Slippy like since it's come out. Like I'm like a pre-Slippy kid. I've hit like Grandmaster on every like ranked season since it's been a thing, right? Like if I look at my username, right, like I've been Grandmaster for forever, right? And I don't even play like rank 2 too much. Oh, whoops. What holds a lot of people back from getting like gold or silver or platinum or diamond or whatever when they're trying to climb their Melee ranks on ranked mode is they get way too flustered about what's on screen in front of them and just want to copy top players and what they do. And that's not bad. But in a lot of guides, you'll see like, oh, just copy this top player, do what they're doing, whatever. And it's like, not to be condescending, but it's like, you just don't know what they're doing, right? So my advice for anyone who's starting new is being able to understand how to move your character as much as you want to be able to, as simply as possible, right? So let me sorry, I just got back from Genesis, like quite literally just a couple hours ago. So I just need to grab my controller. I forgot it's not at my desk. So here. I'm just grabbing my controller. 1 sec, sorry. My advice when it comes to learning how to move and do what you want is, for the most part, you can really just use that old YouTube channel, SSBM Tutorials, and try and think of like new ways to practice it as much as you can in the new training mode, right? Community edition. Because when this channel came out, for the most part, this just wasn't a thing, right? So like it'll talk about like how do you practice wave dashing, or how do you practice all these different things. Wave dash training is just like built into it, right? So you can see like if you're like good enough, or right, like clearly my timings are a little off right now. but I also just started playing. So like that can be a thing you can do. Or like when people learn to wave dash, like I find for the most part, too many people are skipping over like wave landing, right? Like just because you can like do this and dash dance as fast as you want and, you know, make your movement look really tricky on the ground, what does that matter if you can't like maneuver around the platforms, right? Because otherwise, like, sure, Marth is like a really good character at like dash dancing like this and controlling space, but the second like someone throws out like an attack, like, and if you're like sitting like a duck in the air, like his jump is super slow, right? Maybe not as slow as compared to something like Ultimate or Brawl or whatever, but still, like, you can clearly see like why this is just slower than this, right? So some people say like the biggest thing you can do is just like speed yourself up like as fast as possible, make yourself looky as tricky as you can. I would say just having control of your character and being able to do what you want is like the most important thing, right? That and like just knowing like basic punishes. So like for Marth against Fox, right, it would be like, how do I do like the chain grab, right? Everyone talks about like the Marth Fox chain grab. So it's like past a certain percent, like, do I know how to properly hit this guy and make sure that he dies? Not literally every time, but like takes a bunch of damage if I can, right? And just get him off stage. So those two things alone would be the things I would recommend to get good quickly. And it's like simple, but yeah. So that's a lot of me yapping for a little bit. That was like almost 10 minutes of it straight. I'm curious what you think. If you have any questions, what you've run into while trying those things yourself. Like, I know you're like super, super new still, so that's where I'm at. There is. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I muted my microphone there for a second. That makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, it goes like super deep down the rabbit hole, right? Like, this game has been around, people have been talking about it and trying to be the best they can be for over 20 years. So it's like there is a stupid amount. Like, if I were to show you like my notes, for example, this is what I do. I take notes on my own like little Discord server. Like, you could talk about like certain ranges, you could talk about like all the laser heights, like the power shield windows. Like, there's so much you could talk about, right? One thing I will say, actually, I am really big on taking notes on Discord for a couple of reasons. I'll talk about that for a minute. So I'm very big on note taking in general in Smash. I know you haven't been to many tournaments, but one thing that's like really common when you go to events is people, when they're done playing, they pretty quickly are just ready to like talk about like their bracket or like how things could have gone or what they think is going to happen in the game or whatever. Like, people talk about Smash a ton, right? And one of the things I've found is like, especially like I said, like with these websites and resources I'm giving you, like, you can just get insane information overload, you know? Like, way too much. So what I typically recommend when it comes to like making sure that you know what you want to do is to take notes in your own Discord server. So like, for example, if I go down all the way to the bottom of mine, sorry, one sec. The main thing I noted whenever I looked at my Slippy replays, I realized I can't get Marth to do what I want quickly enough, which ties what you said about moving your character. Yeah. So, for example, let's make like a example note of like notes you should be taking, right? So I'm really big. Some people do it on Google Drive. Some people do it on the Notes app on their phone. I would really recommend Discord for a couple reasons, right? So let's say right now I'm going to make a Discord server, right? What's nice about Discord servers for notes is you can see here, like I have all my notes categorized by different channels. So like this is like a general channel, but I can make one for like Fox, and this is where all my Fox notes are gonna go, right? Or like if I want notes against like, I don't know, Jigglypuff, like these are where all my Puff notes gonna go, right? And it's easy to categorize them, where I find like Google Drive and just a notes app on your phone, it's gonna take forever to search and find it, right? What's really cool, so let's say I write a note about back here against Jigglypuff, and I'm writing like notes about Shine here, right? But like I'm just writing random words, right? What's really cool about the Discord thing as well is you can search for certain keywords too, right? So if I'm like, oh man, like I really don't know how to deal with Jigglypuff back here, where am I, how to deal with back here notes? Like I search for it. It's going to take a minute because it's its first time ever searching, and maybe because I have to, why is this not working? Back air. Oh, it's because I haven't searched in this channel before. Right, but point being, okay, this is a scam. I don't know why this isn't working. It's because it's a brand new server. Let's do it in my notes server where it actually does work, right? Like if I search the word edgeguard, all my edgeguarding notes are going to show up, right? What's particularly helpful too is like I can take pictures of it as well and talk about what I want, right? So like here, I'm talking about like how do I edgeguard Donkey Kong as Marth, and like so here are like all my edgeguarding notes of Donkey Kong against Marth, right? And like I can use pictures and reference them, and it's just like it's part of Discord, and I really like it because it's easy to pull up at tournaments just on your phone, right? The other thing I was going to say was when it comes to taking notes, you can have just a stupid amount of notes, right? Like I have so many notes I've written against Donkey Kong, like it's like not funny, right? And same thing with like Captain Falcon, like I have all these notes against a character, and this is just stuff like I have found or like found that's been like useful, but like what, like how am I going to possibly remember that all that while I'm playing, right? But the point being, like I said, you can get insane information overload by looking at these websites, and it's all there and easy to find for the most part. But the biggest thing you can do is just keep things simple. So if you want to keep track of something, I always say take note of it and throw it in your notes, but you don't have to necessarily remember it, right? But before you play, if you have a couple things you want to work on, if it's already written down, it's like easy to just find it and be like, okay, this is what I want to do, right? And like I just know what I want, right? So that I think is really big. So for example, like right now you're talking about you can't get Marth to do what you want quickly enough. One of the best things you can do to get good fast when it comes to self-improving in the game is be as specific as you possibly can. You don't have to get super into like frames or anything like that. But like when you ask people, like you're playing against them, and you'll ask them like, how do I get better? You know, the person you're going to play against 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, I don't know. What do you mean? Like, what do you like? Your neutral can be better. Your edge guards, your punish, your defense, your like, you know what I mean? Like so much can be improved. So what's nice about that is when you're like, okay, I don't know how I want to do this or whatever, you can just write a note about it, right? And I'm like, right now, I'm like, okay, here I want to learn to sticky walk. Here I want to learn to edge guard. And I just like, I have it written down. So I know what I want to do. Right. So like, here's a note I have where I'm like, if I actually want to hit them here, I have to make sure I'm timing it right. And the note isn't anything deeper than that, but it's the fact that I'm like writing it down. Does that make sense? More specifically, I'm having a hard time implementing what I heard is shuffling, and I get the general neutral. It's a good idea to shuffle while dash dancing, wave dashing, etc. Those are all things I'm not necessarily good at. I also understand I should separate these skills and learn them one by one, but even the smaller steps seem confusing. Right, okay, so for example, right, like SSBM tutorials, like any technique or mechanic that you can think of in the game, chances are you're going to find it either an SSBM tutorial video on it, or it's going to be on Melee Library or somewhere on Melee TV, right? So like shuffling, for example, it's a good reason you've heard about it because it's like one of the most popular like videos that are ever made in the game, right? I'm sure if I scroll for like a couple seconds here on the most on the popular videos, like there's going to be a video on it. But even still, I'll just search it. So like shuffle Melee, right? So there's a couple videos on it. I'm not sure where the SSBM tutorials video is. Here it is. There's short hop video. But you're right. Like I would say the best way you can like break things down and learn about it or learn things in the game is just to break them down individually and not try and like shuffle while dash dancing or wave dashing, whatever. Those are things you practice, right? So for example, let's take a look in training mode, right? So everything you practice, like I would recommend almost always just doing it in Uncle Punch, right? So what's really cool about this is it has an input display. So you can see like at the top here, like you can see like my actual controller inputs are and like how I'm doing things, right? But you can't see like hand cam, for example. So this is short hopping with Marth. One thing to understand about short hopping, for example, is every character in the game has different short hop timings, right? So if I pick
different jump squat.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like if I want to jump squat, or sorry, if I want to jump with Fox, like I'm gonna have to learn to do the short hop input a lot faster. Otherwise I get a full hop like this, right? And to be fair, the things you're learning right now, like shuffling, for example, or anything like that, these are things that people compare to like riding a bike, you know, because it's like once you learn them, you kind of never forget them, but it's hard to learn at first because it's just so fast and it's uncomfortable with your hands. The best thing I can do to recommend personally, like it doesn't really matter if you use like X or Y to jump. I would say whichever button is more comfortable, not for you to get the short hop out, but for you to press to other buttons, right? So for me, for example, like I like using the C stick a lot so I can do like quick double fares with Marth, right? So I find that's a lot easier to do that with the Y button than it is with the X button, right? Or like if I want to do like jump up B, I find it's a lot easier to do it with Y because I can just move my thumb downwards and hit all these buttons versus like jumping over the A button with X, right? Where sometimes I have to like make sure I don't press it. So for example, like when I want to do like multi-shining with Fox, like I find it's like really easy, or like easier rather, to just do it like with Y and B versus like B and X, right? Whereas sometimes you can press A and you get like a misinput. But either way, so for shuffling, for example, right? Like, or any mechanic, start from like the first step. So like the first step of a short hop, fast fall, L cancel, aerial is short hop, right? So like you can just practice short hopping. And then you can practice doing a short hop and fast falling at the peak of your jump. In Melee, there's no visual indicator for getting your fast fall out as quick as possible, but in Ultimate or the later games, like you'll get a little flash when you fast fall.
Yeah.
L canceling, thankfully, in Uncle Punch is actually really easy to practice because they have like a mode built in for it, right? So it'll tell you like if you pressed it or not, right? So here I'm pressing it. I'm getting all my L cancels at the right time. And on the right, it actually is telling me like how fast am I fast falling? Like, am I getting it at the right timing or not? And if I miss it, it's going to make the sound, right? One thing I would recommend, the target is particularly really helpful because a lot of people don't understand that your L cancel timing will change when you interact with an object or not, right? So like if
Right, because
you
of the hit stun,
exactly,
or
right?
the hit lag.
So like I would say it's just as important to practice this, especially with your laggier moves or like your moves with more hit lag, like down air or something, right? So that you can actually make sure that you hit them at the right time. This I would say is more important to practice like with the target, and you could make the target like move, right? This is like a easier way to practice it and a better way to practice it than just doing it in place over and over, right? Because you're going to be able to do it faster in place.
Right. So could you look at my stream for a second?
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. Yep. Go ahead.
So like I've got this like semi-consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can sometimes do it while standing still.
Right.
But the problem is still like trying to short hop consistently. Like there, like I'm trying to do a short hop every time right now,
Right.
and sometimes I'll still get a full hop out.
Yeah.
And especially trying to do this while like dash dancing. It's like it just seems like a lot.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like it's uncomfortable, right? Like anything, and I'll say this, like a lot of people get really like up in their shit about like my hands hurt or like I can't do this, it's not possible, whatever, like it's just too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this just from like learning instruments, learning a bunch of different things outside of Melee, like things that are like technical skills, like anything is going to be uncomfortable and feel weird when you're trying it for the first time or like you're new to it, right? And it like may even hurt at first, right? Like people who learn the guitar, for example, like I play that instrument, and like a lot of people who are new to the guitar like really cannot stand like how it'll callous your hands, or like it's hard to stretch your fingers. My fingers just don't stretch that way, whatever. But it's like over time you build that muscle memory and you're able to do it and it doesn't hurt, right?
That makes sense.
So it's very similar to Melee. Like I would honestly consider like the execution in Melee, like a lot of people compare it to like a rhythm game sometimes. Like you'll hear, oh, it's like jazz, whatever, right? Like that, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration term or expression, but like it is very similar to learning an instrument, right? Where it's just going to be very difficult at first and maybe even uncomfortable for your hands. So the best advice I can give for learning to short hop, which is something like every Smash player goes through, regardless if it's like Ultimate or Melee.
Like I remember I was playing like when I was first introduced to the concept of short hop like aerials. It's like, oh, it's easy. Like I just press X and A at the same time. Because in Ultimate, you know, you can just do that. There's literally a macro to short hop, just press X and Y at the same time. But in this game, there's not any sort of buffer.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Can't really do that as easily.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to time it more, right? But like if you can just short hop in Ultimate, you can short hop in this game, right?
Yeah.
So there are different ways people go about it. So like I said, like it is preference at the end of the day. Like you don't have to do Y or you don't have to do X. I practice short hopping at first by sliding my thumb off the Y button as fast as I could, and that would give me more consistent short hops. But over time, I've just kind of eventually gravitated to just pressing it and tapping it as fast as I can because I want to be able to move my fingers faster to the other buttons, right? So like sometimes, like if I'm doing like multi-shining, for example, not that it's important, but like I'll just strum my thumb from like Y to B, you know, and I just do that strum pattern over and over. But if I'm doing like short hop Nair with Marth, where you have to press the A button, I just tap both Y and A, you know, not at the same time, but I tap Y as fast as I can and I move my thumb to A and I tap it then, you know. Sorry, I just tapped it physically and forgot I was your screen I was looking at, not mine. But like that's how I do it, right? So there are different ways to do it. Like you can slide off, you can not slide off like the technique in the game, but like you can slide off the Y button, you can tap it. Some people like pinch it. Some people use like they claw their hand, so they move like their index finger down to the Y button, and that's how they do it. They just like press their knuckle against it. You're gonna have to find what works best for you, but chances are I would recommend, honestly, and I know it's like cringe and annoying, you just have to grind it out and practice it, because it's like it's the ride your bike of the game, you know. What I will say,
what I'm understanding is it's just like right now I have to be very conscious about short hopping, but eventually it'll just be automatic.
Yeah, exactly, right. What I will say, stuff like this can be really annoying in Melee to start, and it is why a lot of people quit the game at first, because this is like the learn to ride your bike, before you can like go out and, you know, explore the city or whatever, you know. But this is like it is difficult, and it is something you have to like grind at first, but eventually, like I said, it's just muscle memory. You don't even think about it, right? Like, so that there is comfort in that. I would recommend, some people sit in the rooms and they practice this for hours a day. That is not going to help you at all. Consistency is like the most important thing when it comes to getting good at something. Like if you're playing an instrument, you can play your instrument for 8 hours all day, but if you don't touch it again for a month, those 8 hours don't matter at all, right? So I would recommend, especially where it's something as simple as short hopping, just do 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes is still a lot for just short hopping, but just do a couple minutes every day and you'll get used to it. What I did to get good at Melee pretty quick and get good at like the timing aspects of it, because I started with Smash 4 for a long time, right? So like I still knew how to play, but like again, I had to relearn all my muscle memory because like you said, there's just no buffer in Melee. I don't know how into music you are, but like I would just listen to a new album or like a couple new songs that my friends would send me, and I would just listen to those while I practice Melee, you know? I had a friend who he would watch TV and he'd just grind the inputs on the side, right? Because like I said, this is like you're just learning to ride your bike stuff, you know? And Uncle Punch for the most part is just learning like timings for the most part, you know?
There was this thing that I keep going back to the Valorant coach, but there's this thing that they used to say where it was like the gradual increase in skill when you go from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence, and then between them is conscious incompetence and unconscious competence. It's like you start from not knowing what you're doing and doing something wrong to knowing that you're doing something wrong, and then now you know you're doing something correct, and then now you're just automatically doing something correct.
Yeah, a lot of people will try and talk about that in Melee. They'll call it like flow state, where it's like the middle ground of like thinking and not thinking, and like the apex of your skill or stuff like that. So there's like similar concepts in the game about it for sure. Yeah, like I said, this is just something you kind of just have to grind a little. So don't be like discouraged. This is something like literally everybody goes through. You're not going to be the first, you're not going to be the last, you know? So yeah, I would say biggest thing is consistency, right? So just like 10 minutes a day, just practice your inputs. I would say in terms of like techniques to learn early that are like important. One of them is short hop, fast fall, L cancel aerials, right? This short hopping honestly is not the most important thing. You could totally get away with being someone who only full hops. The problem is you're going to have to learn to move your character where you want, right? So like if you take a look at my screen for a minute, there really isn't, like if I'm only controlling, I don't know if I can take a screenshot. I'm going to move Fox here real sec. Okay, so let's do this real quick. We'll go in Paint here for a minute. All right, you can see Paint real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing to understand about short hopping, right, is you're only attacking a range in the air that's really short, right? So when Marth short hops, oh, that's not the Paint tool. When Marth short hops, he's only going to be attacking like a range like this, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like, it doesn't really matter that I'm just trying to make this more visible, can only short hop because I'm only I'm only dealing with this range of the stage, right? And if I full hop, I'm probably going to go to a range that probably, oh my god, probably looks something like this, right? Right, where I go all the way up and all the way down, right? But either way, being able to just do the two, like, really just kind of sucks, right? Like, I only cover these ranges or anything in between. But when it comes to the top platform, now I have no way to deal with it, right? Like, anywhere in between. What is nice, though, about short hopping, right, is, like, you're able to control the range in front of you pretty quickly, right? Like, Marth, for example, will use forward air. It'll look something like that, right? So this is, like, something that's very quickly able to access
like his
you.
burst range.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. well, at least with aerials, right? Aerials I would consider like almost like normals in other fighting games, right? Where they're more like right in front of you.
Right.
They're like in Melee, your aerials just have like the least amount of lag for the most part, right? But if you're full hopping, right, you're probably only going to cover this range or this range really late, you know? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like only covering one of the other isn't really that great. The problem with people who only full hop though is they're just stuck in the air for so long and they are able to get hit on the way down. So being able to do something like wave landing where you like kind of just land on the platform at a mid height as fast as possible is really good, right? Or like if you full hop, maybe you full hop to something like this, you can air dodge to the top platform and then you get out if someone tries to like come at you and hit you on the way up, you know? All this to say, I would think of the game, one thing a lot of people don't talk about it, think of the game in terms of like arches, right? Like if Fox wants to hit Marth here, like obviously these characters aren't in threat of each other, but let's say Marth was like right here, right? If Fox wants to hit Marth with a nair here, he has to like jump up, go down and land, right? And then hit him, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like Fox can't jump all the way like this. Maybe Captain Falcon can, but Fox can't, right? So why it's good to think of the game in terms of ranges, in terms of like, or arches, sorry, in terms of like which arch they cover. Like think about it from Marth's perspective, right? If he stays out of range like this, he knows he's safe. And otherwise, like Fox can full hop maybe, but like that's really it. Like you don't really have to worry about this range because it's like a really big commitment for Fox to like go and land something like this, right? So doing something like here where like, again, you have your fair range to cover. If you put a fair here, you intercept his nair in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that concept is clear. So my point is that from your perspective, being able to move wherever you want and say, right, so if I'm outside of Fox's like full nair range, oh, sorry. If I'm outside of Fox's full nair range, this is like the furthest he can possibly go, right? So if I'm just like always dashing like somewhere like here, he can't really reach me, but I can always threaten like a quick attack on him, right? Alternatively, if I'm in the corner, right, and I'm really worried about Fox dashing and coming in to hit me when, here, let me do this. Ugh. Right? If I'm really worried about Fox hitting me here, right, where I can't like run in and hit him, it's important that I should know like how my arch works and I can like get out of this quickly. You see how that makes sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, maybe like I could be really goated and get the right short hop timing here and hit him before he's able to hit me. Because technically Marth Nair, like he goes a little higher in his short hop, so the Nair will always be on top of Fox's if you time it right. But if I'm late on it, oh, that was a little early. If I'm late on it, right, Fox is going to hit me while I'm jumping, right? I'm doing a late Nair with the Fox, so that's why this is making this a little difficult. But like that, right? Where like I can't really get this aerial out in time, right?
Yeah.
He hits me.
And I also remember hearing somewhere that like with Marth against Fox, or Marth against like most characters, is that like Marth's aerials are gonna like beat out most of theirs.
Yep.
And I see how that makes sense. Like I see that sometimes when I play, but it's just like, again with the thing with like moving a character is like Marth's full hop all the time. It's not really what I need.
So what I'm trying to tell you, right, is like there's a lot of things where people say like this is how Marth works, or this is where this character works, and this is what I think is really good, right? But it's like in practice, right? Like let's be real for a minute. Like it is true, Marth's sword, because of the way, I'll show you real quick. This is the technical reason why Marth's sword beats everything. Not to get too into it, but right. If I were to attack with Marth here, do you see how the yellow part of the hitbox on Marth on the right Like that's where his arm is, but all this other like pink and orange or whatever, like that's not touching him, right? Whereas like if I do the same thing with Fox, see how it's like really, really close to him? Like it's really easy to just interact with.
A lot less disjointed.
Exactly, right? So in other words, yeah, the disjoint makes it so that Marth's moves beat everything because there's just so much of a hitbox between him and his arm that they just don't interact. The other characters' hitboxes don't interact with his arm before they interact with the sword. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So my greater point, that going back to like the short hopping, full hopping, why it's important to learn to move, is for Marth players, you're more worried about... Marth is more of a defensive character than people like to admit, right? Obviously, you can be really aggressive with him and play aggressive mix-ups. I'm not saying Marth is a purely defensive character, but his movement and his strength lean towards walling and defense a little bit, right? So, like, Fox is really fast, he's really small, and he has really big, really good up-close hitboxes, right? So he has to get close to hit this Nair, for example, right? Like, look at the distance between the green and the purple on him, right? Mm-hmm. But for Marth, like this is, I want people to not be close to me. I want to hit them with this hitbox, but he's in the air longer, right? So instead of doing like a rising aerial, like how I'm doing right now, like look how exposed I am now, right? When I'm landing, I would want to do it maybe landing and fast falling so that when I land, right, there's only a little bit of hitbox out, right? Like I could have done that way later too, like that, right? So they can't get in. Like this, right? So that's the idea of Marth, right? Is like they can't get into him, and also he can put this aggressive big hitbox in their face. But my point, right, without getting too into it, like I said, is it's just important to be able to say like, okay, I'm in a bad spot here in the corner. I can either run underneath you, because the game is like arches, right? Like, do you see how Fox went up and then down with his Nair? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even with a short hop, like, he has to rise up and then fall down, right? So you can, like, run underneath someone, and Marth's dash dance is really good because he leans so far and forward. You see this right here? Where he's just leaned so far forward here. It's hard to hit him if he's running away from you. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because then he has to jump up and he's not going to hit you.
Exactly, right? So Marth is really good at moving, right? I can move really far distances, and I'm like always actionable to do whatever I want and put this sword out. But it's also good. One of Marth's strengths is, like I said, he walls people out really well. So like the center of the stage is really important for him. So like I can basically say like, hey, good luck trying to hit me and getting out of this corner, right? Because I have all these like insane, really aggressive hitboxes here, or really like hard to beat hitboxes. So once you're up close, like you can't possibly react to this in time, right? Like it's just humanly not possible. You can't react to just like what move I'm gonna do. Like you don't know if Fox doesn't know here if I'm gonna run in and hit him. He doesn't know if I'm gonna jump. He doesn't know if I'm gonna stand in place and just down tilt or F smash or whatever, right? So I would say for the most part, the reason why being able to move your character is really important is not because like other fighting games where you want to hit like a string of inputs to get the optimal combo, right? Like that's how I think that's the problem that people have when it comes to like learning short hop, fast fall, L cancel, is they say like, okay, if I hit Y at the right time and L at the right time and fast fall at the right time, like that's just getting like a perfect aerial out, right? But you still have to consider like positioning where they are. Like Smash is very different in that sense. So why it's important to move is like to say, okay, I know on paper, for example, and like we could talk about this another time, but just for example's sake, Marth is really good in the center of the stage. I'm in the corner, and I think they're going to do this way. I think they're going to try and do like a short hop aerial to hit me. Well, now like full hopping and wave landing to the platform and getting over them is good because now I have the center and we can fight for that, right? Or like if I think this Fox, for example, here, I'm going to move him real quick. If I think this fox is just going to spam full hop back here like this, right? Maybe it doesn't make the most sense for me to be like a... Sorry. Maybe it doesn't make the most sense for... Oh, I messed this up. For me to do... It doesn't make sense for me to be like full hopping as much there, right? And like maybe now... I don't know why this isn't working. I'm not going to question it. Maybe now I shouldn't do full hops, right? Maybe now I should be dash dancing with Marth or like running underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the reason why people tell you learn to move your character as efficiently as possible is because later down the line, it builds off of it much more than like, I know how to multi-shine or I know how to like spam double fair with Marth or like these difficult character techniques. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So later down the line, you're going to have to develop like a game plan. Like, how does Marth beat Jigglypuff? How does Marth beat Fox? How does my character do better than yours? Like on a very simple level, like the character traits, right? Like an example is like Sheik, for example. A lot of people say Sheik beats Marth really bad. It's like Marth's worst matchup. But one of Sheik's biggest weaknesses, I don't know if you're going to see this right away, but one of Sheik's biggest weaknesses, when she jumps, like she doesn't move very far in the air from left to right, right? Like this is how far I get with a single full hop. Not very far compared to Marth. He goes much further, right? And that gets blown up even more on like the short hop side of things, right? Short hop, I only go this far. Marth, on the other hand, he goes much further, right? And it interacts with even up close, right? So, for example, even though people think Sheik beats Marth really hard because, like, she has better grab combos and edge guards at top level, and, like, her neutral's really good, at any level of the game, it's really hard for Sheik to get over a move like down tilt, right? Which covers the ground so well in front of her, because her big weakness is she's so slow moving left to right in the air, right? So as Marth represents something like this, like, he can swat her out of the air if she tries to hit her, you know? So otherwise, she doesn't really have a good way of getting in on him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So being able to move outside of, like, your moves like this and say, like, okay, I think Sheik's going to try and hit me here. I'm going to grab her. Or actually, you know what? No, I think she's going to jump in the air. I'm going to, like, forward her out of the air. And, like, just being comfortable doing what you want when you want to do it, that's the important thing. Does that make sense? So it's not about being as fast as humanly possible, as a lot of old guides will tell you. Those players never really got that great. It's about doing what you want when you want to be able to do it. So that I would say is the important thing. So like I said, right now with like short hopping and all that, it's hard for you to learn it because it's new. But just like an instrument, if you practice it, you'll be able to do it on command, and then you're good to like bring that into other things like wild dash dancing, wild wave dashing, etc. You know?
Okay.
So sorry, go ahead.
It's just like, I know it's probably not the case, but it's just like a small worry that it might be something I'm doing that's just very glaringly wrong, and there's like some other way that I should be doing it, but I just assume that I just like keep doing it, you know, because that's like a big problem with Valorant as well. It's like, if you just assume that you're going to go on aim labs for an hour or 2 hours every day and then get better, like that's not going to work, because
right, of course,
a specific way you should be doing it, a specific task you should be doing.
Well, I guess the difference between Melee and Valorant, for example, right, is like if you're going to compare aim labs to like dash dance, like I would compare aim labs to like with punishing, right? So it's like you in aim labs, like you're always trying to make sure that you hit your shots as fast as you possibly can and like they're completely accurate, right?
Right.
And I would compare that not 1-to-1, but like it's pretty similar to like reversal training in the game, where it's like, for example, I'm making sure like, okay, when she hits me here, like I'm acting as soon as possible out of it and being able to like hit her as fast as I can, you know? But I would compare what you're learning right now more to like crosshair placement. Does that make sense? Like just knowing like you have things where you want to be and knowing what can come out of them and knowing that you're able to do it like well is important, you know? It's
That
not
does actually make a lot of sense.
it's not one to one, and Melee and Valorant never are going to be, but you can take like the concepts you learn in other games for them, right? So
Okay.
I would maybe compare it to like, for now, like the execution day one is maybe just like basic crosshair placement. But of course, like you could always make another comparison to like another mechanic whenever, right? But like the benefit is like in Valorant, for example, and I'm stretching because I really don't play a ton. I only play a little bit. But like your team comp, for example, like you could compare that to like your game plans, right? So like based on your team comp and what the other team you're playing against is, like maybe like certain strats work easier against them, right? But in Melee, like because you're solo, you're your own team basically, like you're only one person. Like the benefit is Melee is like so deep of a game compared to Valorant when it comes to like options available at a given time, that like the Sheik down tilt example, right? Like I could have like a million different options and my team could like cover like the same or different game plans in a similar way, but it's only going to matter if I can execute on it, which is like reliant on your aim assist, or not aim assist, your crosshair placement. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So all I'm trying to tell you right now is the reason why people tell you that being able to move efficiently is important is so that you're able to use different options at a given point whenever, right? Like people aren't going to be bots and do the same thing over and over and over. So there's no point practicing the same thing over and over and over, but just practicing it enough until you're able to use it when you want to, that matters. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like I think I get what you're saying. It's like a push in Valorant is only gonna work if you can hit your shots the same way. Like you're like the fox you're fighting against is gonna be adapting to you, and you could have the game plan to fight him, but it's only really gonna work if you can do the inputs.
Yeah, and what I was saying earlier, like some people, they just go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, these inputs may be really hard, but I think they're optimal and whatever, and it's like, or you could just walk up and F smash them, bro. Like you just have to have an idea of what they're gonna do, and like there's a million different things you can do, right? Because character options are deep enough and the movement options are deep enough in the game where you have choices, right? So like short hop, fast fall, L cancel, honestly, is not that important as, in my opinion, as like platform movement and just being able to dash dance and move where you want to, because positioning matters a ton with Marth, right? Like spacing matters. You can't be up in your opponent's face hitting non-tipper attacks that are like unsafe or weak, right? You want to get like those tipper aerial attacks. So like you want to be able to move and space the way you want, right? So short hopping is important, and like L canceling, because you want to be able to combo off of it, the attacks that you get. But I would say like practice wave landing and wave dashing and dash dancing first, honestly.
Okay.
Because if you can do those, you'll be able to add your attacks later, you know? And thankfully, Uncle Punch has that built in because it's one of the first things you're going to learn in the game, right? So it's one of the first things you'll see. Like you have wave dash training. And I want to make sure, actually, because I'm not 100% certain. Yeah. Wave dash training will still tell you if you get your wave land on. Like you still get the green flash. But that's a big one, right? So I would say for now, if you want to book another session in the future, we can talk about your progress doing it or like things to do out of it. But
okay.
From a basic standpoint, day one learning Melee, what do I do? My advice is going to, and like we talked about a lot of the reasons why, but like my advice is going to be learn to dash dance. Your dash dances don't have to be good. It's okay if you get like the slow turnaround here and there. But just to be able to comfortably, like, there's old videos by an old Smash player named Pew Pew. He would say the way you can practice dash dancing the easiest is you go to this circle on Yoshi's Story with Marth, and you try and get to the closest you can to the edge and back and forth and anything in between, right? So as long as you can stay dash dancing, like this is not really helpful, right? Because you're not really moving very far or doing anything. You might as well just be standing or crouching, right? This is not really helpful. But this and like moving with it is good because it makes you hard to hit, right? So that's the first thing I would practice, is just being comfortable moving and being hard to hit, so that your opponent can't like easily throw out an aerial on you, right? That's what dash dancing
my
does.
friend also told me to go onto Dreamland and go on the top platform and do it.
That's a good way too. I learned it with this, like, you see the circle in the middle of Yoshi's?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I learned it.
Same thing with the Pokeball on Pokemon
Yeah,
Stadium.
exactly, right? I think this one lines up pretty well for Marth. But do you, like, whatever works, right? The idea, like I said, isn't do it as fast as possible. It's just to have control to say, like, okay, I can move from one side to the other pretty easily. And you don't have to be perfect at it. Like I said, 10 minutes a day, consistency is the big thing, right? So that'd be one of the first things I learned. The other would be wave landing. People say wave dashing, and don't get me wrong, wave dashing is, like, good, especially with Marth, because he has such a long one. But really, like, I would say this is more important, right? Like, just being able to comfortably, like, move from platform to platform and not spend a bunch of time in the air. I like practicing wave landing on Battlefield, because I have a little exercise where I'll just wave land back and forth like this, from the top plat to the side plats, and anywhere in between. This is a little hard, especially if you're new. But the thing to remember about wave landing is it's mostly reactive, right? Eventually you'll get a feel for timing, but like this side platform, the time it takes me to get like a good wave land on it is going to be different than Dreamland, which has like a much taller platform, right? Compared to Yoshi's, for example, the platform is really short, right? See how that timing is like a little different?
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also compare it for like Marth's tipper attacks, right? Like, see the up tilt goes really deep into the stage here, and I get like almost the whole platform. If I do it on Dreamland, because it's so much taller, oh, sorry, I only get a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how do you up tilt without jumping?
So the unfortunate answer in Melee is you just have to get good at just tilting it up a little bit. But I'll give you a little trick. So during like high laggy moves, like let's say like your down air, for example, or like during a wave dash, like why wave dash? You see how I'm like pressing up and just smashing it up? I'm not jumping. Or like during a down air, I'm flicking up like as fast as I can, but I'm technically buffering it, right?
Oh, yeah, you're buffering the up rotation.
Exactly, but not the up jump input, because Marth isn't actionable yet to jump. Does that make sense?
I get it. That's pretty cool.
Similar thing exists with shield dropping, right? Like, to shield drop, you technically have to like shield, roll your stick over all the way to the right, and then go down. But people struggle with that because they accidentally like roll, right? Doing it too quick. But technically, if you dash and are already holding forward, you can just roll down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that the answer is you can't press it up. You just have to get good at like timing it. But technically, it gets pretty easy if you do it in like a move or like lag of something else, right? So anyway, the 3 things to practice: dash dancing, and again, it's just to make yourself hard to hit, and then you can move forward with them, and it's kind of unreactable. We could talk about reactions and all that another time, just so that you're able to play. Dash dancing is one of them. Wave landing is the other one. And L canceling is going to be the last one. Like I said, some people get really strung up on the short hop, fast fall, L cancel stuff. Like being able to do it all perfectly and doing it on the barrel, right? And getting it every time. That's not so important. It doesn't matter if I get a full hop or a short hop in this game. As long as I'm hitting them, I just need to make sure I L cancel so I'm able to act and do something after I get the hit, right? Whatever that action's going to be. So I would say just practice L canceling, and you can mix all of them in together, right? Like you could practice on L cancel training. You could do it on Battlefield, and you could literally practice them all together at once, right? Like I could practice wave landing to the top platform, full hopping, and then getting this, right? And then like, oh, the barrel's over here. Okay, I'm going to dash dance over here, wave land on. You see what I'm saying? This is what I would recommend. Doing this is almost the exact same thing as the in-game mode exercise. People say this is a really good way to do it because you have to hit your tipper aerials to break the eggs with Marth. But I don't think this is as good for what you need to do today, just because it doesn't give you any feedback as if you actually hit the L cancels or not. So my recommendation...
I mean, you could turn on the OSD.
You could, yeah. But I like the visual thing, so I'm just moving and doing it and not like reading all the time, you know? My recommendation, do L cancel training. Pick a stage with platforms. FD's fine if you just want to practice the L cancels, but like probably like Battlefield, Yoshi's, or Fountain I would recommend. Turn this to move. You can turn the on-screen displays on if you want, but just practice being like Battlefield also has a similar circle in the middle, right? So you can practice your dash dancing, you can practice your wave landing, and you can practice your L cancels with the barrel, right? I know it sounds stupid and it's maybe annoying because it's Uncle Punch and it's solo practice and you just want to play. And like, don't get me wrong, you could boot up unranked right now and play. But this is just going to be the fastest way you can get good quick, and like you know why you're doing it, you know?
Okay.
So yeah, do you have any questions before I end the recording here? Anything at all?
No, I think you've got most of what I had.
Okay, cool. So I'll stop here just so you can watch that back and easier and not have it be too difficult to watch over. So I'll end things here.